Hello friends, this is Stephen, and we wanted to come and to bring you an update on where we are in our plans to renew in-person worship and in-person gatherings here at First Baptist. Let me begin by saying thank you to all of you who have supported us so patiently and so faithfully during this time. Thank you to all of you who have supported the church financially during this time and continue to give through your tithes and offerings. We thank you for that. Thank you to everyone who's continued to find ways to be the church throughout this time, to your Sunday school members, your small group members, your neighbors, your family, your friends. We've heard so many stories of ways in which our community continues to support one another, to pray for one another, to meet needs for one another. So thank you. So we wanted to give you an update on where we are in these plans. Over the last few weeks, we have been meeting with our church leadership along with a COVID task force that we have put together here. And that's included our ministerial staff, our deacon officers, as well as some select members from our community who work in the healthcare field or work in local government. And we felt that they would be able to bring us some unique insight for how we might apply all of the recommendations that we've been reviewing to our specific locality here, to our specific church and our needs. So we reviewed all of that data together that we've been able to come up with and put together a plan that we feel is best tailored to meet our needs here at First Baptist. So I want to give you an overview of that plan, but you can read the entire document. We're going to link that on our website so you can access that and read through the whole thing. First, we recognize that community is important. We know that you miss seeing one another, and frankly, we miss seeing you as well. And so we are going to start opening the building for Sunday school classes and small groups during the week, the weekday, starting on Monday, June 15th. We needed to wait until after that mandatory shelter-in-place order expired on June the 12th, and we feel like this is the best first steps for us. So we've identified some select locations within our facility that we feel like will best accommodate the needs of some of those small groups meeting together. So there's three primary criteria that we looked at. First, the room needed to have a dedicated entrance and exit space so that we weren't crossing each other or bottlenecking into one space. So each room needed to have its own exit and entrance. The room needed to be large enough so that we could observe physical distancing between one another. We know that the best recommendations right now are 6 feet, and so we need to be able to set up chairs in such a way that we could observe that physical distancing. And then the third thing is that each of these rooms needed to have some kind of access to a dedicated restroom. Now, we're encouraging people not to use the restroom, not to use water fountains at all during this time, but we needed to make sure that those were there just in case there was an emergency. Now, these will be available, like I said, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That'll give us time between those meetings to come through each of those spaces and to thoroughly clean and disinfect them. You can register your small group, your Sunday school class by calling the church office, and they will have a registration form or reservation form that we can put you down and get your class on board with that. Now, if your class says we're not ready to meet in person, you are more than welcome to continue meeting virtually or in whatever way that you have found to be effective during these last few weeks. We are not insisting that our classes begin to meet, but we want to give you that option. And some of our classes may still choose to meet in other places outside of our church building, at homes and other locations, and we are okay with that as well. We will begin renewing in-person worship on Sunday, July the 5th. Sunday, July the 5th. Now, many of you have given feedback to our staff over the last few weeks, and so we've tweaked our plans a little bit as to how we're going to do that on the 5th. On that day, we will have 2 morning worship services. Now, that's a change from what we said before, but we've looked at the ways in which response from other churches in our community, and we believe that we'll be able to accommodate our numbers in 2 services. Those 2 services will be different in nature. The 9:30 service will meet in the sanctuary, and it will be more traditional in nature. It will be led by piano and organ, more along the lines of our celebration service. So that will happen at 9:30. Then at 11 o'clock, we will have a more contemporary styled service. It will meet in Morgan Hall. Now, if we need overflow seating, because there's too many in Morgan Hall, we will have overflow seating in the gymnasium during that time. Now, for the time being, there's not going to be anything else happening besides those 2 worship services on Sunday mornings. So prepare yourself for that. No coffee house, no children's worship, no nursery, no Sunday school, no library, just those 2 worship services. And we'll ask all of our families to sit together and to come together for worship. If you don't feel comfortable at this point, you say, I'm just not ready to come back, that's okay. We will continue offering our online broadcasts in the same way that we have been before. We will on the website, on cable, Comcast 26, or on the radio, and those services will continue at the regularly scheduled times as well. Now, for all of those gatherings here in the church building, we're asking that our congregation follow a series of what's become familiar and pretty doable things to help us prevent the potential spread of disease. Maybe you can think of it like this. It's kind of like combination therapy. If you were to take any of these things by themselves, they all have flaws and they're all limited in their effectiveness. But when you combine them all together, it makes a pretty good approach to provide the safest environment for all members of our community. The first of these is hygiene. We're going to have sanitation stations around the building. Anytime you come in, we would ask you please sanitize your hands, make sure that you are doing your best to wash your hands frequently. That's one of the best things we can do. Second thing is screening. Now this could be self-screening for yourself, is that you look at and become familiar with what are the potential symptoms of COVID-19 or any kind of sickness for that matter. And if you feel sick, if you're running a fever, if you're coughing, if you any of these symptoms that we have laid out in this guideline, just stay home. It's okay. Just stay home for that time. Don't come when you know you're not feeling well. Let's just be wise and think about our neighbor in that way. We're also going to have physical distancing when we are in the building. The recommendations now are for 6 feet of physical distancing. So we're separating out spots and we're identifying places on our pews. We're setting out chairs in such a way that even as we gather together, we can observe 6 feet of physical distancing while in the building. Right now, the best advice we're getting from almost every organization in the United States is that wearing a mask is preferable. It's the best thing we can do. Now, while some of the cotton masks do not prevent us from getting disease, they can prevent us from spreading it. And so what we're asking is, we're strongly recommending that everyone who comes into the building wear a mask, just out of respect for not spreading it, even when we don't even realize we may be asymptomatic. We may not even realize that we have anything, any kind of virus in us. But let's do the best we can to prevent that spread. And then the final is a culture change. That everything that we do as a community should be guided by our desire to care for and to serve others. And so we're asking that our community as a whole, our church as a whole, adopt this kind of attitude during this time that puts the safety and well-being of our neighbor, of others, above our individual freedom and our individual preferences for this time being. All of these put together will help us do the best we can to provide a safe environment. Now, finally, I want to just make a couple notes about camps for the summer. They're going to look different this year. Sarah, along with our children's ministry team, has decided not to have Vacation Bible School this year. Passport Camp for our children has also been canceled as an in-person camp. Now, there are some options, and our children's ministry team and Sarah are working to put together some virtual camp activities. Passport is providing some virtual camp activities, and so Sarah will be getting that information to you as those plans are solidified. We also learned this week that base camp will not be possible this year for our youth. And we're pretty bummed about that. Seth is pretty bummed about that. But he's working on some creative ways to engage our youth over the summer. And so, again, stay tuned. Seth will be informing you of those as they come about. Or they might just happen some by surprise as they started this week. Now, as I've said before, if you would like to look over the complete document of all of this plan, it will be linked on our church website, and it contains many more details than I've covered here in this video. And you should also feel free, if you have any questions or concerns, to contact the church office. If there's any way that we can help you as you prepare to come back and as you have questions about what that's going to look like, please call us and let us help clarify those. And more than anything, just know that we love you and we are looking forward to seeing you in the weeks ahead. Take care.